and welcome back to everyone's favorite trial lawyer podcast, Settlement Nation, and our War Chest Wednesday series. It's Courtney here, joined by Chris, bringing you the strategies and tools to help you win more cases and grow your practice. Today, we are talking about something we are very passionate about. It's the lifeblood of our company, Independent Life. It's attorney fee deferrals through a structured settlement. Previously, we did an episode covering the basics of this topic, which is, if you look back in our archives, it's actually episode 25. And if you haven't listened to that one already, I suggest you pause and go back and do that, as it really covers the foundation and the basics of how, why, and when you can defer your contingency fees, the benefits, and the timing. This episode today is for the advanced players who may have already started to defer some of their fees or who've been considering it and have some big cases ready to settle coming up. Remember, this valuable strategy for deferring your taxes and regulating your cash flow with guaranteed payments and growth is only available to plaintiff attorneys. So if you just go back through our last 15 episodes and have a look at some of those guests that we've had, every single one of those trial attorneys is utilizing this vehicle for their own personal and law firm financial planning. So when you consider who they are and the results that they've received, this is a really big deal. And maybe this is a bit of a hint to you about why they're able to focus on trial, because their business is taken care of. So Chris, just a quick recap. I want you to share an overview on what the three options attorneys have when they're settling a case.
Awesome, Courtney. So like you said, they have three choices. The first choice is to take 100% of the fee now. So if you've never done an attorney fee structure, this is the option you picked. The second option is kind of the opposite. You can put 100% of your contingency fee into a attorney fee structure, deferring it over time, a time period that you pick. And then the third option is kind of a blend of 1 and 2, where you can take some of your fee now into your law firm's trust account, and then put the balance of the fee into an attorney fee structure.
And so what we always like to do is focus on benefits. Can you give our listeners a run through of the benefits of taking option 2 and 3 and not just taking the cash and getting hit with the maximum tax burden upon receipt?
Absolutely. So the funds for an attorney fee structure are invested on a pre-tax and tax-deferred basis. So you're allowing your fee to work for you the entire time versus giving up 30, 35, 40% to Uncle Sam and then trying to make up the ground with your own investments or even higher rates if you're in a state with state income tax. This, again, allows you to have your money, your entire fee, if you choose to work for you on a pre-tax and then tax-deferred basis. Tax-deferred basis is a great benefit for you because there may be later years in your life where you're not earning as much money. So your attorney fee structure payments may be coming in at a time where you may pay a lower tax rate. So that's a huge benefit, and that's a common reason for why attorneys do this. Another benefit is, unlike a 401k, there are no limits on how much you can place into an attorney fee structure. You could never do it over your entire career. You could take some of your fee on every single case that you settle. You could put every single dollar of every contingency fee that you have for your entire career into this product. There are no limitations. And there are no penalties for taking payments prior to retirement age, which is 59 and a half. So if you're an attorney that's 40 and you want to start taking payments at age 45 or age 50, you're not paying that penalty that other professions where you would defer money for retirement would be penalized. The recipient of the attorney fee structure payments, they can be you individually, or they can be your law firm, or you could do a joint life annuity with your spouse, where both you and your spouse are named payees. You can also designate beneficiaries for the payments. So that can be your estate, that could be your law firm, that could be your spouse, your kids. You have that choice, and you can set that up on the front end, and then you can also amend it and revise it as your life changes down the road. And then finally, you can add a cost of living adjustment. So we all see inflation in the news all of 2022. We're living it every day. So you have the ability to add that cost of living adjustment so that your payments do increase over time to help fight that inflation.
And all these great benefits that Chris just spoke about, remember, they're only available when you take these other options. If you just take your contingency fee as cash, they all disappear. So that should be something you should think about, is just giving yourself these options. You don't have to do it, but it is a great benefit to you. And also, don't feel bad if you've never heard about this before. We do many speeches all around the country now, and there's seasoned attorneys who've been practicing 20 and 30 years who've never even heard about this before. So everyone's learning. We're giving you the opportunity to learn, but it is something, it's never too late to start. So we want to talk a little bit now about tax savings, because this in itself, I think, is something that we've heard, Chris, from a lot of attorneys is a huge motivator for them to consider this on nearly every case that they have.
Absolutely. And before we get into this, full disclosure that you should seek your own tax advice, your own counsel from tax professionals, tax attorneys, CPAs that can guide you on what's best for you. So anything we say today is not tax advice. These are purely just examples. And again, you should consult your own advisor. I think it's hard in a podcast audio only format to go through kind of a tax saving example, but we're going to give it a shot. So one example would be an attorney that maybe earns a career fee. So one example that we like to use is maybe a younger attorney, mid-30s, typically earning a couple $100,000 a year, but they settle that career case at that point in time in their career, where they earn $1 million fee. There's, as we said, several ways that they could take that fee. And we want to compare two of those options. One is the attorney taking the entire fee now, paying tax immediately, and then investing it on their own or with an advisor. And in that scenario, for the $1 million, you're netting approximately $630,000 after tax, where you can invest that. And what we've looked at is a 15-year period where you invest that money, you earn on average a 5% return. The proceeds from those the proceeds from that investment account over the 15-year period after you pull out taxes is roughly $800,000. In the second option, we look at putting the 100% of the fee into a I-structure annuity, which we'll talk about in a little bit, that will provide an attorney fee structure over the same 15-year period. So the $1 million goes in, you get periodic payments for 15 years. After taxes, using kind of a historical average scenario outcome for the annuity, you're netting just over $1 million. So you're having about a $200,000 difference in your pocket over that 15 years, just by the decision you made at settlement of whether to take the fee now or to take it over time.
And traditionally, people, I think, have associated structured settlements with low returns, Chris. And, we've heard this. It's more of a conservative approach. Independent Life recently launched a brand new product, which is an index product. And you've seen such a great response to this. It's called the I-structure. You mentioned it before, but for everyone who is listening, would you be able to give a bit of an overview of what the I-structure is?
Sure. So if you're familiar with traditional structured settlements, it is just like that, with the exception of the rate of return not being known on the front end. With a traditional structure, you have a fixed rate of return. For the last 15 years, they've been really at historic lows. So a lot of attorneys haven't done a fee structure for purposes of spreading money out over a long period of time. We have fixed that problem with the I-structure annuity. So you get all the benefits of a structured settlement, but you have the ability to earn a potentially higher rate of return over time as a result of being linked to an index called the Franklin B of A World Index. It's the first index co-branded by Franklin Templeton and Bank of America, two companies I'm sure you're familiar with. And they've created an index that is built for stable, consistent, long-term returns. And through a historical backtest, we're seeing returns in the 6.5% to 7% range. And those are creating tremendous payment growth opportunities for you in the contract. So you're able to earn substantially more money over the life of the contract than if you had done a fixed rate traditional structured settlement. So again, you get the benefits that you've grown to love with a structured settlement. You have an annuity contract, so you have underlying guarantees, but you have potential for real upside over the life of the contract.
And, you've seen a lot of attorneys, Chris, just jump on this product because, as you did mention before, it has the guaranteed payments, which I love from a fixed product, but now you have the upside of an index. Do you want to give some examples maybe on how attorneys that you've worked with in the last couple of months have been using the I structure?
Absolutely. So I think the best place to start is how they had been using it with the fixed rate structure. And like I mentioned earlier, the rates of return weren't so great. So they weren't really spreading the money out over a long period of time. They wanted to push it off just a few years, maybe 7-8 years max, just to get the payments to be in different tax years, not really looking at it as an investment. What we're seeing with attorneys with iStructure is they're viewing this as a real investment. They're viewing this as an opportunity to set themselves up for retirement, to get really strong returns, but also taking advantage of the tax deferral. So now we're seeing all the attorneys really doing 20, 30-year payments or deferrals of 10, 15, 20 years, and then taking payments thereafter. So they're using it in a whole different way. They're recognizing the value proposition of really getting as much exposure to the index as possible to grow the payments, which is great. And I think we're going to see more and more of it down the road.
And I think something to remember for everyone listening is that you can use both products, either a fixed or an index product. The payments can be used for so many different things. We do cover this in episode 25, but it could be your law firm expenses, your payroll, leases, office overhead, marketing, advertising, a war chest for future cases. And then you have your own interests. So that's retirement, that is investments, that is, cash flow, mortgages, children's tuition, anything like that. So really the world is your oyster when it comes to using a structured settlement. And it is so flexible, and you can set up the timing and the payments in any sequence that you would like. We've spoken about all these great, amazing benefits, and we don't want people to miss out. It does all come down to timing. If you do miss the timing with this, you can't do any of these wonderful things. Chris, when is the best time that attorneys should be reaching out to their settlement planners, or even us if they don't have one, just to start this conversation and start this process?
Yeah. So the best rule of thumb there is the earlier the better. We all know how hectic settlement is. So you don't want to be learning about these things or making decisions about these things while you're settling the case. You want to have these discussions as much in advance as possible. So the earlier the better. I would say at least a few weeks before mediation. And again, this podcast is focused on using it for your attorney fee deferrals, but this product's available to your clients as well. So the settlement consultant, if they can build a bond early with your client, who will, when they settle the case, potentially be making the biggest financial decision of their lives. If they know that person in advance and they can build a bond and a trust factor, they're more likely to make a decision to do a product like this, which is in their best interest financially long-term for most of these people. So earlier the better. Let that bond build. And then as far as your fee goes, it gives you time when you're outside of this actual hecticness of the settlement and documenting it, et cetera. You've already made those decisions of what you want to do with your money when the settlement actually happens.
Well, that's fantastic. And for anyone who wants more information or just to chat with us about, the I structure, the fixed product, attorney fee deferrals in general, or maybe to help you find a settlement planner in your area, you can email Chris at cbua@independent.life and myself at cbarber@independent.life, or DM us on Instagram at Settlement Nation Podcast. We are on there all the time. And we also post all of our upcoming episodes and juicy quotes and tips on there as well. Chris, parting words for attorneys listening, anything, spur a bit of wisdom for them today.
Yeah. One thing we didn't touch on, and I'd like to leave with this, is a lot of attorneys think like you have to have $1 million fee to do this. That's not true at all. We work with attorneys all the time that do maybe a little bit of several cases in a quarter. And then by the end of the year, they've done many cases. And then over 6, 7, 8 years, they've done many, many, many cases. And they're pretty much set up for retirement. So I don't want to say that they didn't feel it along the way. But if you do a little bit at a time, it's maybe not as noticeable in your bank account as you go on. So that's one thing to think of. A misconception is you have to do this with large fees. It's not the case.
That's really good advice, actually. I'm glad that you added that in. Yes, for everyone listening, whether you're a new, old attorney, young, just starting out, seasoned, as you said, this is not just for the mega millionaires and the trial stars. This is available to everyone. So as Chris said, settle a case. You may just take a portion of that case and start this process and see how it goes. And we know you'll love it. Everyone that we works with, once they start doing it, they never stop. So we thank you so much for listening to Settlement Nation podcast. We are here back again in the next couple of weeks with a brand new episode for you. But until then, make sure you start researching your attorney fee deferrals, and you can catch us again soon on Settlement Nation.